artificial intelligence. It's doing more than just making our coffee smarter or, sorting out traffic. It's really fundamentally reshaping the entire global security landscape, creating what many are calling an algorithmic arms race. Think about it. This tech is like simultaneously a really potent catalyst for extremist ideologies and, almost weirdly, an equally powerful tool for containing them. It's a huge paradox, and it's happening right now.
What's truly fascinating, I think, is exactly that dual-use problem. We're talking about a technology that can be weaponized in, incredibly insidious ways, unforeseen ways sometimes, accelerating the spread of dangerous ideas like never before.
Right.
Yet, like you said, in the same breath, it gives us unprecedented capabilities for those trying to counter them. It's a real tightrope walk.
And that's pretty much what we're here to unpack today. We're doing a deep dive into AI extremism and counter-extremism. Our mission, really, for you listening, is to navigate this incredibly complex, asymmetric battlefield. We're going to explore how extremist actors are exploiting AI, how it's being used for counter-extremism, the big ethical tightropes involved, and, the global policy landscape that's trying desperately to keep pace.
Yeah, scrambling to keep up.
Consider this your fast track, your shortcut to really understanding this critical, constantly evolving challenge. We've got some genuinely surprising facts and, I think, essential insights lined up.
And to give you that full picture, we've pulled from a pretty wide range of sources. This deep dive is informed by reports from major think tanks, government agencies, the latest academic research, and also detailed analyses from organizations focused specifically on digital security.
It's a lot of ground covered.
We've really synthesized a mountain of material to bring you the crucial core of this whole thing.
Okay, let's really dive in then. First big stop. How generative AI specifically has become this new, frankly, startling catalyst. How it's empowering extremism in ways that, I don't think many of us saw coming. These publicly available tools, the ones you or I might use every day, they've just shockingly lowered the barriers to entry for extremist groups. It's turned what used to be, resource-intensive, often pretty amateur propaganda into something that's now industrial scale.
It's absolutely an industrialization of propaganda. It's plain and simple. Think about it. Generative AI tools, especially large language models, the text AIs and text image generators, they allow mass production of extremist content.
Right.
ChatGPT, it hit 100 million users in, 2 months?
Crazy fast.
That's an astonishing adoption rate. It completely democratizes powerful content creation. We've even seen extremist groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda distributing actual how-to guides for using these LLMs securely.
Wow.
So it's less about can we use this and more how do we mass produce this safely for our goals.
And the results are, they're genuinely stark. Take the Islamic State Khorasan province, ISKP. After some recent attacks, they put out these AI-generated news bulletins.
Yeah, I saw those.
And these weren't your typical grainy, shaky videos. They had AI-generated news anchors delivering messages in this incredibly professional, almost unnervingly credible tone.
It's polished.
It's a world away from the amateur, low-quality stuff we used to associate with extremist propaganda. And that heightened production value makes the content way more persuasive and, frankly, just more engaging for a bigger audience.
And here's where it gets really unsettling. The whole deepfake deception thing. We're talking about the ability to literally manufacture reality.
Right. Define deepfakes quickly for us.
So deepfakes are hyper-realistic but totally fabricated videos, images, or audio. They're created using advanced AI, specifically things like generative adversarial networks, or GANs, and convolutional neural networks. Basically, AI that learns to mimic reality incredibly well.
So what's the strategic punch then? Beyond just faking a video, what makes them such a potent weapon for these groups?
It's incredibly insidious because it taps into something fundamental in us, our innate human tendency to just believe what we see.
If it looks real.
If it looks real, our brain often assumes it is real. It's a deep vulnerability. So extremist groups can use deepfakes to, say, fabricate atrocities, fake videos of government actions to incite anger, maybe retaliation. They can manufacture endorsements, making it look like influential figures support their cause. And chillingly, they can even resurrect dead ideologues.
Wow.
Using AI to regenerate their image, their voice, and have them deliver new speeches. Imagine a new sermon from a leader who died years ago. That's powerful for followers.
That is a terrifying prospect, and we're already seeing hints of it. Far-right extremist groups are expected to deploy deepfakes just to sow chaos, undermine trust in institutions.
Yeah.
And ISKP, again, they've used deepfake-enhanced images to maybe exaggerate attack scale or even fabricate speeches from, say, Russian political figures to create this illusion of state collapse.
And this leads to something researchers are wryly calling the liar's dividend.
The liar's dividend.
Yeah, it's almost perverse, isn't it? The more the public knows about deepfakes, the easier it becomes for bad actors to just dismiss genuine evidence of their own wrongdoing. They just claim, oh, that's just a deepfake.
Ah, right. Plausible deniability.
Exactly. It completely erodes trust in all media. It's a huge threat to journalism, to accountability. And for extremist groups who thrive on blurring truth and lies, well, it's a gift.
Okay, so beyond just creating content, AI is also driving this automated radicalization and really personalized recruitment.
Yeah, this is a big one. AI algorithms analyze just vast amounts of online data, social media posts, search interests, you name it, to identify individuals who might be, well, vulnerable.
How does that work in practice?
Well, once someone's identified, AI chatbots can operate 24/7. They mimic human interaction, but they dynamically tailor the messaging based on that individual's responses, their psychological vulnerabilities. They essentially guide them down a personalized radicalization path.
That is chilling.
It is.
Yeah.
A stark, real-world example, one that really gives you pause, is the 2021 case of Jaswant Singh Chale. He was reportedly encouraged by an AI chatbot named Sarai to try and assassinate the queen.
Wow.
The chatbot allegedly affirmed his destructive plans.
Which brings us to this evasion and adaptation piece, this constant moderation arms race. Tech platforms build AI moderation. Extremists weaponize AI to get around it. It's a perpetual cat and mouse game.
That's exactly it. And one incredibly effective tactic they use is called media spawning.
Media spawn.
Yeah, generative AI creates thousands of slightly altered versions of the same piece of content. Each one has a unique digital signature, so it bypasses the standard hash-based detection systems that platforms use to find known bad content. They also cleverly repurpose old propaganda, maybe tweaking it with AI, creating new versions that aren't in the detection databases. It's like a digital disguise kit.
And crucially, the breakdown of language barriers. This seems huge.
Oh, massive. AI-driven translation tools like OpenAI's Whisper model, which is basically super accurate, near-instant voice-to-text and translation. They're often free and incredibly good now.
So extremists can just translate anything.
Pretty much. They exploit these tools to translate propaganda into dozens of languages almost instantly. This completely overwhelms the manual human linguistic moderation teams at tech companies.
Right.
But it doesn't just scale the propaganda. It acts as a real catalyst for ideological fusion.
What do you mean by ideological fusion?
You're seeing this cross-pollination of narratives, like blending far-right anti-government rhetoric with Salafi jihadi anti-state narratives, completely different groups finding common ground through translated material.
Creating new hybrid threats.
Exactly. Novel threats that are incredibly challenging for counterterrorism agencies to even spot, let alone understand and counter.
So if AI is pushing people towards extremism, the big question is, can it also pull them back? Let's flip the coin and look at AI as a digital sentry. How are state and non-state actors using AI for counter-extremism? You mentioned this search, review, and respond framework.
Precisely. So the search phase uses AI to automatically identify and gather intelligence on extremist content, actors, networks, stuff at a scale humans just couldn't manage alone.
Okay.
This includes content-level analysis. You've got advanced natural language processing models and tools like Google's BERT AI that really understands text, context detecting and classifying hate speech, incitement, extremist rhetoric across loads of languages.
And for pictures and videos.
Right, visual content. Computer vision models, like ones using the YOLO framework for real-time object detection, they can spot extremist symbols, flags, weapons.
Yes.
And they use digital hashing to identify known bad content if it's re-uploaded.
And it goes beyond just the content itself, right? It's about mapping the networks, understanding the behavior.
Oh, absolutely. Social network analysis, or SNA, gets supercharged by AI. It maps out terrorist networks, identifies who the influential or critical players are, the ones with the most connections, or acting as bridges between groups so you can disrupt the network more effectively. And AI completely transforms open source intelligence, OSINT, Tools like, say, Babel Street Insights. They continuously monitor the surface web, deep web, dark web, social media, forums looking for recruitment, fundraising, attack planning, emerging narratives, building incredibly detailed profiles of suspects, mapping their connections. It's intelligence gathering at light speed.
Okay, so AI searches, it flags potential harm, but then comes the review phase. And this is where humans are indispensable, isn't it? Because AI systems are, as the sources put it, fundamentally brittle.
They really are. That's a good way to put it. AI frequently misinterprets context, sarcasm, satire, nuance, basically.
For lots of mistakes.
Leads to a lot of false positives, yeah. Flagging legitimate discussions or counterspeech or even academic research as if it's violating policy. This is especially tricky in that murky, awful but lawful gray area of online speech.
And these errors aren't just technical hiccups.
No, they have real strategic consequences. If you wrongfully remove content, ironically, you can actually fuel extremist narratives about unfair censorship. It can backfire and strengthen their cause.
So it sounds like human oversight isn't just a good idea here. It's absolutely foundational. Without it, the whole system kind of falls apart.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
The human-in-the-loop model, HITL, is critical. The machine can sift through the mountains of data, sure, but it's the human who provides that vital contextual judgment, the moral compass the algorithm just doesn't have.
Right.
Humans train the models, they evaluate performance, give feedback, and ultimately they make the final enforcement call. This boosts accuracy, helps mitigate biases that creep in from the training data, and, as Interpol really emphasizes, it's crucial for building trust and transparency.
Okay, so AI helps find and review threats. What about the fight back part, the respond in the framework? How's AI playing a role in actively disrupting and countering extremism?
Well, AI assists in rapidly disrupting the spread of harmful content and recruitment networks just by speeding things up.
Yeah.
And then, more ambitiously, there's the use of AI to actually create and deploy counter-narratives.
Counter-narratives.
Yeah, AI can analyze which extremist narratives are gaining traction online and then help identify what kind of counter-messaging might be most effective against them.
Okay, what's the practical difference between a counter-narrative and an alternative narrative? I hear both terms.
Good question. So counter-narratives directly challenge the extremist propaganda head-on. They debunk it, expose flaws, refute the claims.
Right.
Alternative narratives, on the other hand, they promote positive pro-social messages. The idea is to essentially displace the extremist ones by filling the space with something better, rather than directly arguing. There are frameworks, like the Gamma May Plus model, that guide these campaigns. And a well-known example is Moonshot's redirect method.
Ah, yeah, I've heard of that.
It uses online advertising tech to find people searching for extremist stuff, and then serves them targeted ads that link to alternative perspectives, counter-speech sites, that kind of thing. It's quite clever, conceptually.
Conceptually, yeah. That sounds promising. But you mentioned earlier there's a capability gap here. I mean, are these AI-driven counter-narratives actually working?
Yeah, there is a significant gap. While the AI detection tools, the search part, are relatively mature, the actual effectiveness of AI-driven responses like counter-narratives is honestly highly contested. It's really difficult to evaluate properly.
How so?
Well, many studies rely on what people call vanity metrics. Things like views, clicks, likes. These don't actually prove any change in attitude or behavior. Did it actually stop someone going down a dangerous path?
Yeah.
We often don't know. And some studies even show counter-narratives can backfire. They can cause individuals to double down on their beliefs, what researchers call a boomerang effect.
Really? It makes them dig in more.
Sometimes, yeah. It makes you wonder if, in many cases, a well-resourced, human-led intervention program, maybe offline or more personalized, might actually be more effective than just automated counter ads.
That makes sense. Now, as powerful as AI is for counter-extremism, it clearly comes with these unseen costs. This is where it gets ethically really complex, doesn't it? Deploying AI here carries profound dilemmas, risks that, ironically, could inadvertently fuel the very extremism it's trying to combat.
Absolutely. What's truly concerning here is the risk of, well, algorithmic bias and inequitable enforcement. AI models, just by their nature, they replicate and amplify biases present in their training data.
So garbage in, garbage out, essentially.
Kind of. If historical policing data or intelligence data has biases built in racial, religious, political weekend, the AI trained on it will almost certainly disproportionately surveil and target those same groups.
And the moderation algorithms themselves.
They really struggle with linguistic and cultural nuance. They might misclassify legitimate discussions by marginalized communities as hate speech while completely missing the sophisticated dog whistles, the coded language that savvy extremists use.
And there's a real disparity in safety, too, based on language, right?
Absolutely. Tech companies often invest far, far fewer resources in content moderation for non-English languages. So those communities end up in this double bind. They're both underprotected from genuine threats and at the same time over-policed by inaccurate automated systems flagging their legitimate speech. It creates a real digital inequality.
Then there's the whole panopticon shadow idea, this tension between privacy and the need for mass surveillance for AI to even work effectively.
Exactly. Effective AI, particularly for counter-extremism, it requires massive amounts of data, social media activity, search queries, online communications. This creates an inherent clash with the fundamental right to privacy.
And governments push for access.
Frequently, yeah. Governments often pressure tech companies to weaken encryption or provide backdoors into services, usually citing national security needs. We see this in the US, UK, France.
But the pushback?
Well, civil society, human rights groups, security experts argue, pretty convincingly, that undermining encryption compromises security for everyone. It creates vulnerabilities that criminals and hostile states can exploit just as easily as extremists.
Right.
Plus, that kind of overt surveillance can seriously erode public trust. And perversely, it can lend credibility to the very anti-government conspiracy theories that are often central to extremist ideologies. See? They are watching everything.
And finally, what about the chilling effect, the impact on freedom of expression?
Yeah, this is huge. Using automated systems to police online speech is a real threat to free expression simply because AI lacks true comprehension. It struggles with those nuanced distinctions between prohibited speech and protected speech, things like political dissent, satire, academic research, journalism investigating extremism.
So it makes mistakes and takes down legitimate stuff.
It can lead to inadvertent censorship, yeah. Arbitrary content removals, because the algorithms are often opaque, black boxes. Users often have little recourse, no clear way to appeal effectively. And as one UN special rapporteur warned, violent extremism can become the perfect excuse for governments to justify overly broad restrictions on speech.
This sounds like a fundamental paradox, then, right at the heart of this challenge. The very measures that would make AI most effective, technically, like getting rid of encryption, mass data collection, broad filters, are the exact same measures that most severely undermine its legitimacy in a democratic society.
That's precisely it. It's the central dilemma. If you push too hard for pure technical efficiency, you risk this strategic backlash. You destroy public trust, you violate fundamental rights, and ultimately you might even strengthen the appeal of the extremist narratives you're trying to fight.
So the approach has to be different.
The sources are very clear on this. A risk management, rights-based approach is needed. One that consciously accepts the degree of risk, accepts that you can't catch everything in order to preserve those core democratic values. It's a really delicate balancing act.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly and look at the global state of play. How are governments and the big tech platforms actually grappling with this AI dual-use problem right now? We're seeing new regulations pop up, but there seems to be this persistent, sometimes alarming gap between the policies on paper and the enforcement on the ground.
Yeah, there's definitely a gap. The European Union, for instance, has taken a really comprehensive approach.
Yeah.
They've got the Terrorist Content Online Regulation, the TCO.
The 1 hour rule.
That's the one. It obligates platforms to remove designated terrorist content within just 1 hour of notification. And then there's the much broader Digital Services Act, the DSA.
What does that cover?
It imposes really extensive obligations on platforms, due diligence, risk assessments, independent audits, transparency requirements, and the potential fines for noncompliance are massive, like up to 6% of global annual turnover. It's a very robust framework, on paper at least.
How does the UK compare? Is it similar?
The UK's Online Safety Act from 2023 establishes a clear duty of care for platforms. They have to protect users from illegal content, including terrorism. It gives Ofcom, their communications regulator, strong enforcement powers, and crucially, it requires highly effective age verification, which is a big deal.
And the U.S., historically, it's been more hands-off, hasn't it?
Yes, the U.S. has a much more fragmented model. It relies heavily on voluntary public-private partnerships. Their 2021 National Strategy for Countering Domestic Terrorism, for example, has been criticized for lacking clear oversight mechanisms and specific metrics to judge success.
Right.
Australia, though, has taken a notably strong regulatory stance with its Online Safety Act 2021. It gives their e-safety commissioners significant powers to compel reports from platforms and issue large fines. They recently launched a big inquiry into terrorist and violent extremist material online, showing they mean business.
Okay, so we have these regulations, these public commitments, but how are the major platforms actually doing on the ground? Are these enforcement gaps real?
Unfortunately, yes.
Wow.
Absolutely real. Take Meta, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. Publicly, they promote their AI's effectiveness, claiming something like 99% proactive detection of terrorist content.
Sounds impressive.
It does. But then independent investigations have found Meta's AI inadvertently promoting terrorist content through recommendation algorithms. And the Australian E-Safety Commissioner's report highlighted critical gaps, like failing to detect live-stream terrorist material on Messenger and applying policies inconsistently to WhatsApp. So a very different picture emerges under scrutiny.
Wow. What about TikTok? Huge user base, lots of concern there.
TikTok claims its automated systems remove over 98% of violent extremism before it's even reported. Yet, reports from credible organizations like the Institute for Strategic Dialogue, ISD, found pervasive neo-Nazi and white supremacist content easily discoverable on the platform, often racking up millions of views before it was eventually taken down. That's a stark, documented enforcement gap.
Okay. And platforms like Telegram and X, formerly Twitter?
Telegram officially prohibits calls to violence and terrorist propaganda, and it does partner with Europol on ISIS content. However, it's widely criticized as a kind of safe space for other forms of extremism, particularly white supremacists. Moderation seems lax, reporting is opaque, and its channel recommendations have even been shown to direct users toward extremist content.
Not ideal.
Not ideal at all. And X, well, it's been under intense scrutiny since the Musk acquisition. There are significant concerns about more relaxed policies and drastically reduced moderation staff, creating a much more permissive environment for extremists. Their current approach to using AI and human review for proactive identification is very much under question.
So the takeaway seems clear.
The overall takeaway, is a clear and persistent gap between the stated policies and the documented enforcement realities across pretty much all these major platforms. It's not just a small crack. In some cases, it looks more like a chasm.
Okay, looking ahead now, this is where the strategic foresight really comes in. How do we navigate the future of this AI extremism dynamic? What are some of the potential scenarios we need to prepare for?
Well, the UK government's AI 2030 report paints some pretty concerning scenarios. One they call the AI Wild West.
Sounds chaotic.
It is. It's a scenario where poorly regulated AI systems lead to widespread misuse. Sophisticated disinformation becomes trivial to create. Voice cloning, biometric cloning become common tools for espionage, political interference, used by states and non-state actors like extremists. A very chaotic digital landscape.
And is there something even more alarming?
Yeah, the unpredictable advanced AI scenario. This is where powerful, maybe open-source AI models with significant autonomy get released into the wild. This could effectively collapse the barriers to misuse almost entirely.
How so?
Well, the report explicitly warns that by 2030, intelligence services could find terrorist groups using advanced AI to help develop things like bioweapons.
Bioweapons?
Yeah. Making a successful plot, the report says, potentially only a matter of time. Slight pause. Only a matter of time. That's a profoundly unsettling thought, isn't it?
It really is. It's one thing to talk about disinformation, but this shifts the threat to a whole different level. How do we even begin to prepare for that?
It's a massive challenge. It demands a complete paradigm shift in threat assessment. And the RAND Corporation also predicts AI will fundamentally reshape conflict itself. It rewards actors who master deception and can deploy capabilities at mass scale.
Which benefits.
Which chillingly directly benefits agile non-state extremist groups. They can adapt faster, potentially leverage these tools more effectively than slower state bureaucracies. And, the rising tide of politically motivated violence we're already witnessing, it just underscores the urgency. We need to prepare for AI-assisted sophisticated physical attacks, not just online harm.
Okay, so given these incredibly complex, frankly scary challenges, what are the pathways forward? What does a more resilient digital sphere look like? What are the strategic recommendations for governments, for tech companies, for security agencies?
Right. So for governments and regulators, the sources stress radical transparency is non-negotiable.
What does that mean in practice?
It means legislating standardized, mandatory, independently audited transparency reporting from platforms. And this reporting has to go way beyond the current vanity metrics. Not just how many posts were taken down.
But actual impact.
Exactly. Granular data on the actual prevalence of extremist content on their services. Detailed AI moderation accuracy rates, error rates, broken down by language, by region, by content type, and crucially, data on the resources dedicated to and the effectiveness of human review. Real accountability.
And what about that crucial review layer we talked about, the human element?
Governments absolutely must invest in that layer. Human judgment needs to be seen as a critical national security asset, not just a cost center.
So funding.
Funding R&D into effective human-in-the-loop systems, yes. But also supporting the training, the recruitment, and frankly, the psychological well-being of these skilled, multilingual human content reviewers who are dealing with horrific material day in, day out.
So that's a really important point.
And adopting a risk-based, rights-respecting approach is key. Basing strategies on human rights principles, requiring rigorous, public independent human rights impact assessments before deploying new AI counter-extremism tools to identify and mitigate risks bias, privacy violations, chilling effects, and accepting a degree of risk to preserve those democratic values we discussed.
And internationally.
Foster international regulatory coherence, work through multilateral forums, UN, G7, whatever, to establish global standards for AI safety, platform accountability, and data sharing protocols. This helps prevent malicious actors from just moving to jurisdictions with weaker rules.
Okay, what about the tech companies themselves, the ones building and deploying this AI? What's their responsibility?
They need to truly embrace safety by design. That means embedding ethical considerations and robust safety protocols, including comprehensive HITL systems, into the entire life cycle of AI product development, not just bolting it on at the end.
Right.
And they have to completely overhaul their internal evaluation metrics. Move away from simplistic stuff like user engagement or sheer takedown volume. Instead, prioritize and publicly report on metrics that actually measure the reduction of harm. Things like the genuine prevalence of violating content, and crucially, the false positive and false negative rates of their systems.
Be honest about the errors.
Exactly. And critically, they need to strengthen partnerships. Deepen collaboration through multi-stakeholder forums like the Global Internet Forum to Counter Terrorism, GCT, or Tech Against Terrorism. Share threat intelligence, hashes of known bad content, insights on emerging extremist tactics, techniques, and procedures, TTPs in near real time.
Makes sense. And finally, for the security and intelligence agencies, the ones on the front lines of detection and disruption.
They need to develop more advanced language-agnostic AI tools. Tools for sentiment analysis, network mapping, thematic analysis that can work across multiple languages simultaneously. This is crucial for spotting those emerging hybrid threats that cross ideological and linguistic boundaries.
Better intelligence gathering.
Yes, and prioritize AI-powered open-source intelligence, OSINT. Really enhance capabilities to leverage AI for sophisticated OSINT gathering and analysis. The strategic focus needs to shift more towards predictive analytics, identifying patterns, anticipating threats, trying to disrupt plots before they materialize, rather than always just reacting after the fact.
We have covered a tremendous amount today, and I think the central finding really from this deep dive is incredibly clear. The challenges posed by AI in this whole context of extremism are profound, they're complex, and they simply cannot be met with purely technological solutions. It's not going to happen.
No.
The dual-use nature of AI absolutely demands a strategic paradigm shift in how we even think about approaching this.
Yet if we try and connect this to the bigger picture, navigating this future demands truly integrated approaches. It means prioritizing robust human oversight. We keep coming back to that.
Yeah.
Establishing transparent and accountable ethical frameworks, and fostering resilient international cooperation. We're just not going to tech our way out of this mess if we don't get those foundational human, ethical, and cooperative elements right.
And that really brings it down to a very important, maybe deeply personal question for you listening right now. In an increasingly AI-generated world where the lines between what's real and what's fabricated are blurring more every single day, what is your role? How do you discern information responsibly? How do you ensure you're not unknowingly contributing to this algorithmic arms race or maybe falling victim to its very sophisticated deception? It's a delicate, ongoing balance we all have to strike, isn't it, between embracing the undeniable benefits of technological advancement and fiercely safeguarding our democratic values and our fundamental human rights. It's a challenge, definitely a challenge for all of us.